My dad raised his champagne glass at my promotion dinner and said, "Some people are just born lucky, unlike the rest of us who actually work hard." I raised my water glass back and said, "Let's test that theory." The next morning, I withdrew every penny of financial support I'd been secretly providing my family for 6 years. No explanation, no warning, just stopped. They thought my success came from luck while I'd been paying their mortgage, car insurance, and credit card minimums since I was 24. Dad liked telling everyone at church how his youngest daughter just fell into money while he built his business from nothing. What he didn't mention was that his business had been hemorrhaging cash for 8 years, and I'd been keeping it afloat with monthly wire transfers he thought came from a deceased uncle's trust fund I'd invented to protect his pride. First week after I stopped, nothing happened. They were still coasting on the last payment. Week 2, Dad called asking if the trust payment was late. I told him the trust had been dissolved due to market conditions. He laughed and said real workers don't rely on handouts anyway. Week 3, the mortgage company called. Dad discovered they were 3 payments behind because he'd been using my money for the mortgage while spending his business income on a boat he was restoring. He had 72 hours to pay $8,400 or face foreclosure proceedings. He sold his prized guitar collection for $3,000 and had to beg his brother for the rest. The brother he'd been telling for years that he was the successful 1 month too. Mom's car got towed from the grocery store parking lot. Turns out I'd been paying the insurance and registration for 4 years through an automatic payment she never knew about. She stood there with melting ice cream, calling Dad, who couldn't come get her because his truck had also been flagged for expired registration. They had to pay $1,800 in back fees and penalties plus $400 for the tow. Mom posted on Facebook asking for recipes to feed a family on $50 a week, the same woman who used to brag about only shopping at Whole Foods. My sister Kelly called me crying after her credit card got declined at her daughter's dance recital costume fitting. She'd maxed out everything because I'd been paying her minimums for 3 years, letting her live like she had infinite credit. The other dance moms watched her try 6 different cards while her daughter stood there in a half-pin tutu. Kelly ended up having to pull Madison from dance entirely because she couldn't afford the $200 monthly fees I'd been covering through a scholarship fund that was actually just me. Dad's business officially folded in month 3. Without my monthly injections of capital disguised as customer purchases, he couldn't make payroll. His 3 employees, guys he'd known for 15 years, walked out when their checks bounced. He tried to blame the economy, tried to blame his suppliers, tried to blame everyone except himself for never actually learning to read a profit and loss statement. He'd been playing successful businessman for almost a decade on my dime while telling everyone his daughter just got lucky with some tech job she didn't deserve. The boat he'd been restoring with what he thought was profit, repossessed. Mom started cleaning houses. The woman who used to tell her book club she was too busy with charity work to have a job. She scrubbed toilets for the same neighbors she used to have over for wine tastings. One of them asked her what happened to the monthly charity galas she used to organize. Mom just mumbled something about priorities changing. My brother Tom moved back in with them at age 35 because he couldn't afford his apartment without the rent assistance I'd been providing. He thought his landlord had been giving him a deal because he was such a good tenant. Turned out I'd been paying the difference for 2 years so he could live in a place that matched his ego. Now he was sleeping on a blow-up mattress in Dad's former office, applying for jobs he previously said were beneath him 6 months in. Dad finally figured it out. He went through old bank statements and traced the trust payments to an account I'd closed. He drove 4 hours to my new city, showed up at my office building, and waited in the lobby for 6 hours until security made him leave. He came back the next day. When I finally agreed to see him, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. His hands were shaking. The man who'd called me lucky at my own celebration dinner was now begging me to save his house. They were 5 months behind on the mortgage. Mom was having panic attacks. Kelly's husband was threatening divorce because of the debt. Tom was drinking himself to sleep every night on that blow-up mattress. I listened to him explain how they were drowning, how they couldn't understand how everything fell apart so fast. And then I pulled out my phone and showed him 6 years of bank transfers. $247,000 total. His face went white when he saw the numbers. Full story on channel link below.